What's going on, ladies and gents? This is Balaji, and welcome to another edition of the Demand Wars. We are about to talk to one of the top 25 AEs to follow, one of the top 50 most helpful contributors to sales development. You know him as that guy from Vidyard. He's interviewing Ronaldo. He's on Joe Rogan. He's in the movie Scream. I don't know how he does it. This guy is everywhere. He creates some of the most compelling content for the brand Vidyard. Please help me welcome Chris Van Praag. Chris, welcome.
Wow, that's the I've done a few of these. That's the best intro so far. That is very, very nice of you. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, listen, it is brilliant to have you here. I'm a big fan of your content. I'm not a sales guy. I don't even play one on TV, but I'm a big admirer of what you've been able to build for Vidyard over the past couple of years. Um, as we were talking before we started recording, Chris, I was sharing how there's a lot of marketers who would love to do what you do, but are stopped by a number of things, including imposter syndrome, worrying about not being funny, worrying about lack of engagement on our content, maybe not even knowing how to come up with creative ideas. So, with your permission, I actually want to dig into your origin story a little bit. Into how did Clark Kent become this Superman that we're seeing in all the hilarious videos, right? So, it was a dark and stormy night. Take us back, Chris.
That's it. Yeah, a meteor landed in the back, and I went and touched it, and suddenly I had video editing skills. No, I don't know. So I entered the world of SaaS about 2.5 years ago. Selling for a
Yeah.
HubSpot agency. Didn't really have any kind of personal brand or presence on LinkedIn whatsoever. And I just had I started putting out content that didn't really seem like me. If that makes sense. Like I kind of created video content because I had some history of creating video content, and I made that. And it seemed to do relatively well. And then as I kind of created more and more content, that became a bit more unhinged as it went. And yeah, and now we're here now where I'm editing myself into various films and movies and stuff. And I'm a big feedback guy, so that the more comments and reactions and reach that it seemed to get, the more motivated I am to keep creating it. So as long as people keep enjoying it, I'll keep making it.
That intrigues me, Chris. There are a couple of areas I'd love to follow up on. The first is this concept of feedback. Um, I don't know, maybe it's because we live in this sort of IG, TikTok, social media fishbowl, but it almost feels like there's pressure for us to be fully baked, fully done, the idea to be completely ready when we share it with the world. Everybody's showing their highlight reels, and we're not necessarily seeing what ends up on the cutting room floor. Could you talk us through how you actually found your voice, how you found the format of content that now works and resonates so well?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. I think I've always had a bit of a passion for create. I've always been quite creative, and always I've never really used to create a lot of kind of funny videos, but I've in the past I've created business videos and training videos, and always knew that I had to keep them kind of quite high energy and upbeat and entertaining whenever they were going to play. So created that, and I don't know, found a footing in a world where I enjoy movies and pop culture. And I know you've had Chris Bogue on this show, and we've had a conversation between ourselves about mixing pop
Oh,
culture,
nice.
which we all enjoy in our day-to-day lives, and then mixing it with that business world. And so for me, it was just about creating like a voice that I was comfortable with and something that I enjoyed doing, because I create these things in my spare time. It's not my main job. I'm a sales professional, so it's not really part of my day to day to be creating this stuff. So I have to enjoy it. So I create it for that purpose. And then, like I say, it really was kind of the more I joined LinkedIn. I didn't really know what you were supposed to do on LinkedIn. When I started using it properly 2.5 years ago, I think I thought it was a tool for, as lots of people do, for just posting the odd blog post, maybe jobs, maybe an update to your career. And then because I started to get good traction, and there was a few other people in the space that were creating it, like Tom Boston, various people that were creating this content, I felt I had the permission to do it also. So I just did that, and because people were commenting saying that they loved it, I was like, well, cool. I'll keep doing it. So I did, and it's always just been like an additional string to my day-to-day job that's helped me to be able to, it's generated leads for me and opportunities for me by virtue of just kind of creating a personal brand. It makes people more open and receptive to me connecting with them and having a sales conversation with them. So it's just sort of snowballed, really. The more I've done it, the more positive impact I've had from it. And you see people every day on LinkedIn saying, I never used to post, now I post, and positive things have come from it. So, I think it's just a case of doing it, getting it out there, looking at the positive comments. And that's the great thing about LinkedIn as well. There's not a lot of trolls. Most people are pretty kind and have nice things to say, or they have nothing to say. So yeah, I just put it out there, and it's done well, and so I keep doing it.
I'll be honest. I mean, I find that refreshing because a lot of times we get to see the work from yourself, from Chris Bogue, Todd Clouser, and Sales Bro, a lot of these other really funny um, content creators on LinkedIn. And at times that can feel unattainable. It can feel like, wow, these guys are so not necessarily polished, but again, they're so resonant in what they're trying to execute and how they're executing it. Like, I'm not even going to try. So I value the fact that you shared you're doing this in your spare time. But this is key, I think, for a lot of our listeners. You said you have actually generated leads and pipeline from it. Could you talk about that a little bit? Because some people might feel that funny doesn't necessarily work in business.
Yeah, I would say so. It definitely has created opportunities, conversations for me. I would say though that I've never created content or gone out of my way specifically for that purpose. And in fact, actually, historically, if I look back on when I used to start creating content on LinkedIn 2.5 years ago, I was creating content for that purpose, and it didn't do very well. It was all very
Mm.
informative. It was me kind of. I was selling HubSpot at the time, so it was me kind of basically talking through case studies, being very not really me, just being a voice that I kind of thought should be on LinkedIn, saying, "Hey, let's talk about this case study and how it impacted this," and da da da, thinking naively that everyone would just be in my DMs like, "Oh my god, that case study is amazing. Can you sign us up for HubSpot?" Never happened. But what happened was then when I kind of stopped thinking about it in that regard and viewing it really as just a way of me presenting myself and something funny and just putting it out there, what naturally happened was people would just connect with me or started following me or would comment on my posts. And then what I would do is look at those people that were connecting with me. And if they were in my ICP, I would potentially ping them a message and say, "Hey, thanks for the follow or thanks for the like. Like, was there a particular reason why you followed me, or was there something that resonated?" Start a conversation, and maybe something led to something there and then, or it could be months down the line. But I can absolutely attribute closed won revenue to conversations that have been started by virtue of me just having a conversation with people. And I would say for anybody in sales that's listening, the real battle as a salesperson, especially in this remote world, is being able to present yourself as something other than a salesperson. So unfortunately, we're at the bottom of the ladder as far as people who want to hang out with us, right? We just because it has that reputation. So I think if you can present yourself in a way where you can prove to your prospects that you're a human being that has a sense of humor, and it also is ideally as an expert in your field. And I appreciate that's a tough balance to be able to kind of talk about, and it's something that I've managed to do quite well, I think, is talk about your product, add humor, and have those two overlay where you can validate that you're a professional, you know what you're talking about, but also you've got humor. That's a really great way to be able to start a conversation, because it's not a conversation about trying to force someone to buy something. It's just a conversation where you can align with them perhaps on a challenge that they're having. They know that you're a human being that has a bit of a sense of humor, and that's a great starting point for a conversation.
I love that. I love that. Chris, we had this conversation about how this is demand wars. We mostly marketers are competing on this show, but every now and then we have a bona fide salesperson. I wanted you in particular on the show, and we have a few other sales professionals that have been on or will be on. I wanted you on in particular because I think a lot of what you're doing is creating demand, despite you not officially wearing that marketer's hat. And so I'd love to jump into some of these questions with this view of Chris is an everyday AE, an account executive, a salesperson who has found ways to build that rapport and create demand um, where both marketers and salespeople have typically struggled. So, the first question that I want to ask to you, Chris, is called Desert Island Marketer. We'll call it Desert Island Salesperson. But you basically have a limited budget. We like to say $1,000 a month, but the general idea is you don't have a lot of resources. You've got a laptop, you've got an internet connection, there's a webcam on the laptop, and you're trying to generate business for Vidyard. How would you go about doing this on a limited budget? So you don't get to buy all the fancy, the sales navigators, the Zoom infos, and all these other tools. It's just you, it's Chris, it's laptop, it's internet. What are we doing?
So I have the $1,000 a month?
You do have the $1,000 a month.
Okay, so I could spend it on Sales Nav if I wanted to.
That you could. That you could.
Okay. So because I had a look at this question before and I was thinking like, what would I do? And again, to your point, I'm not a marketer, right? But if I just suddenly wasn't working for Vidyard, I set up my own thing and I was trying to create demand, I would be on LinkedIn posting, or at least I would be posting content on LinkedIn every day and building a brand there, sharing content, talking about my product and creating a funnel of probably humorous but informative video content about what I can do, and then using things like Sales Nav probably to tap into my ideal, find my ideal customers, and I'd use
Gotcha.
Vidyard. I mean, I come at it from a sales perspective. So if this is Desert Island Salesperson, I'd pay for a license of Vidyard. Small plug there.
Yeah.
I'd buy Sales Nav. I'd invest in a mic, a ring light. I'd probably use my phone or maybe buy a cheap camera, and I'd record content and I'd put video content out on LinkedIn every day, sharing what I can do. I'd engage with people's comments. I'd engage with people on LinkedIn, and I would start conversations that way, just like what I do now. I don't have any kind of unique insights out of what I already do, because ultimately that's what I do right now is I create it. I don't use a budget. Vidyard didn't say to me, here's money to go and do that. Importantly, here's time to go and do that. I've done it just because I enjoy doing it, and ultimately the benefits, have paid off because I've built up a personal brand. I get to talk about this sort of stuff, and it generates opportunities for me as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting how you've done it as well. I was watching one of your recent videos, Chris, the one with Ronaldo leaving Man United. That's been in the news. Soccer fans certainly will know about it, but even non-soccer fans potentially might have heard because of the World Cup. And he had this really maybe controversial interview with Piers Morgan. You superimposed yourself into that interview. I've heard this term newsjacking in the past, and it almost seems like something that you've done from time to time, where you will find something that is top of mind and find a way to insert yourself, Chris, and by the way, Vidyard, into that conversation. How do you choose what inspires you to work with one idea versus another?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I tend to I've done a few of these now, mostly films. I have got one where I did Joe Rogan, and obviously more recently with Ronaldo, and those things are good because I think for me, it has to be recognizable, right? So it has to be a recognizable movie scene or something recognizable that Joe Rogan, everybody knows, or most people know him, and they've seen what his podcast setup is like. So it's enough of a kind of pop culture reference. The Ronaldo thing I felt like was big enough. And I chose that because, it was big news. It kind of perfectly works itself because you've got a perfect setup where you've got him literally talking. So there's no bits where you've got to try to put me in the same shot as him. That becomes tricky with a green screen. It was very now. So I wanted to get it out quite quick. Actually, I'd planned on getting out the day after the interview. I just didn't manage to. And so I waited a week and posted it a week later. But so I think really I've got a few lined up. I do get random DMs from people saying like, "Oh, have you seen that scene from Thingy? You should do that." So I'm always looking for suggestions. But yeah, I think with the Ronaldo, if there's more of that sort of stuff, and I've always thought about various other ones, but there doesn't seem to be too many opportunities. Plus, I've got a day job, right? So it's just trying to
Yeah,
find the
right.
time
By the
to do
way,
that. But that one I just knew was it was very much in the zeitgeist at the time, and so I was like, "This is a perfect fit," and it was an easy one. Sometimes when you watch these things, I've got a weird filter on my brain where I hear the answers and I'm trying to connect what they're saying
oh my
to
god.
something. So I'm sort of watching a film, and then suddenly I'll be like, "Oh, that'll work really well," and then I'll have to try and cut the
Oh
clip and
boy.
work it out.
Oh boy.
My wife
It's
hates
got
them.
to be fun watching. I was about to say it's got to be fun watching films with you.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
She's like, "What are you on
That's
about?" I'm
great.
like, "Don't worry."
Okay, I know, I know. Okay, that's great. A lot of marketers find it difficult to turn their marketing brain off, so I'm sure they can sort of resonate with that. Here's the next question for you, Chris. So the first one was framed around having a very limited budget, which is something you're familiar with. This second one, you don't necessarily have a limited budget. The budget's not the problem. Time is the problem. So you've been asked to create demand fast. And I'd love to see if we can tackle this one in three different ways. The first is, how do you create demand in 3 days? Maybe it's the end of the quarter. The second is, how do you do it in 3 weeks? And then finally, if you have a whole quarter, 3 months, how would you go about creating demand? So let's tackle that first one. It's an emergency. VP of sales pops his head in, says, "We got 3 days. We're really going to miss quota. I need you to work some magic before the end of the week." What are you going to do?
Yeah, I mean, so we're seeing this quite a lot in our world in sales and using video within ABM campaigns. So for me, as much as it took me a long time to kind of think, actually, is this a marketing part of ABM? But I would be using video in direct ABM campaigns with my ideal buyers. So I would be creating video content, creating personalized marketing and outreach based on specific use cases and ICP, and sending them directly to inboxes, scraping emails and sending them directly to people, and using personalized video to reach out to those ideal prospects of that company. Because we know as a conversion channel, video is really good. And this is what I do in my day to day, right? Like I sell a video platform for marketers and for salespeople, but there's a really interesting crossover where marketers are now trying to use video, but they don't necessarily have the budgets or the time to create these really long, expensive, very on brand videos, but they want to get their message out quickly to their ideal buyers. So they're using their sales team to create the demand by saying, look, here's the kind of thing we need you to say. Here's a couple of other additional bits that you can add in. Go out there, create video, and send it to our ideal buyers. So for me, in 3 days, that's what I'd be
Oh,
doing. If I
wow.
had a small team, I'd be finding the people that we
Yeah.
know are ideal buyers or our existing customers who we need to upsell to. And I'd be getting my team to create personalized outreach to say, hey, we're helping people in your space with XYZ. This is how it can help. Let's find some time to talk about it, and then book it in that way. And that's what we do as a platform. So with my limited marketing head, but the experience that our customers are using video for, that's what I'd be doing.
I like that, Chris, and I'd love if you could elaborate a little bit for those of us who aren't as familiar with Vidyard. I think pretty much everyone will know, okay, Vidyard allows for personal recorded video to be sent, I believe, through email. How does that affect open rates? How does it affect the willingness for someone to actually not only open the email, but actually consume what's in the email? And how does it affect response rates?
Yeah, so deliverability isn't an issue. The way we build our platform is we send a hyperlink with a GIF in it, which is the first couple of seconds of the video. Normally, just someone waving or the opening couple of shots if it's a marketing video. So it sends as an
Right.
image. So the same way, if you have an image in your email signature, it's the same thing. What we do as a platform, going back, I guess, a step, is that we just make it really easy to create that content and share it really easily. So deliverability isn't affected like that. Sales can send out videos from you were asking about how it affects open rates and replies. Is that right?
Right, right. So, like, the first hurdle I imagine is getting them to. So much email comes into my inbox, and it's the same for all of us. So, a lot of times, if I don't know the sender, it's difficult for me to actually pay attention to that. So that's the first hurdle. After they open it, um, I've seen some of the Vidyard emails with the GIF, the animated GIF. It's pretty engaging, and I think you guys have templates or best practices for how to
Hmm.
make that GIF even more engaging, which is amazing. And then if they actually click through and watch the video, I'd love to hear a little bit about how Vidyard is helping its clients create videos that actually lead that prospect to take the action at the end.
Yeah.
Like I could record a video right now, but I don't necessarily know the right elements to include in it. So I'm trying to get some
Yeah.
free consulting basically.
Yeah, look, so we ran some studies and found that if you include video in your email subject line, there's a 4 times higher chance that your email is going to get opened because we're naturally inquisitive and we like video, especially if you've put something like I've made you a video, then all of a sudden that's, switching on. So when you've got all of those hundreds of sales emails, if you see something that says like personal video for you, or I made you a video, or just hit whatever it might be, something video, greater chance of opening it. Then you've got that really engaging animated GIF. And of course, normally we say like if it's brand new and cold, do it. We got a little bubble where you're on that person's LinkedIn profile, so you can see I'm on your LinkedIn profile. I'm waving. You can see immediately I've made that video for you. It's not just
Wow.
a it's not just a a cut and paste video that I've sent out to 300 people. So we find that's particularly engaging people to get the click on. Then you want to keep the videos real short, 40 seconds if it's a cold outreach, quick opener, why it is you're reaching out, and a very strong call to action. And then our functionality allows you to build a call to action into the video. So at the end, it'll pop up with a meeting link or whatever. Normally in the sales use case, they want to book a meeting. So keep the video nice and short, really punchy. Hey, this is why I'm reaching out. This is how we can help. This is what we're doing in your space. If you want me to find, what you want to find out more, click on the meeting link. It's going to appear in a few seconds. And
Got
on
it.
average, our customers achieve 2 to 4 times higher replies than they would with standard text-based email outreach. So ultimately, that influences
Wow.
the ability for them to book meetings. 2 to 4 times more meetings, which means potentially 2 to 4 times more pipeline, and ultimately, obviously, close one revenue. So it's a really powerful channel. Obviously, as you said, templates. Sales teams getting bored with video can take a while, but we help them to get on board with that. So it's just an easy way of being able
Fantastic.
to help the sales team to be more personal and connect with their prospects.
Yeah, yeah. I heard a saying once a long time ago, Chris. Um, I think it said something to the effect of everybody loves to buy, but nobody loves to be sold to. As a buyer, I before COVID started, I would every now and then my wife would drag me to the mall, and we'd walk through these stores, and instantly my feet would start to hurt. I'd just be exhausted. Okay, so maybe I just wasn't thrilled about that buying experience, but I especially wanted to avoid one of the customer service reps coming over to offer me help because I felt like when that happened, they were in control of the conversation, and they were going to almost maybe manipulate me into buying something I didn't want to buy. However, if we went to the mall with the object of me picking something up, oh, I was very interested at that point. My feet didn't hurt. I'd walk into the store. I'd actually walk up to the customer service person, ask for help. Hey, I'm looking for the red shirt with this and that. At that point, I wanted to engage. And it feels like any opportunities we have to make the buying process more human allows the prospective buyer to have a little bit more comfort, to feel like they're not necessarily just moving through a churn and burn system, a number-based system.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's lots there, right? Like video is a way for the salesperson to more directly personalize. But I think you're right. Like if we can make sure that messaging is about, you see in sales emails that you'll receive, right? So many of them are so poorly written, and they're like, "Hi, I want to tell you about my product and how my product can help you to do this, 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 this." And it's not about that. And so I think it's really important when you use the messaging, and your video is not a silver bullet. It's absolutely a big help in increasing your chances of a reply, but it's not a silver bullet. And you do still need to make sure that the dialogue is all about them. So, I will do that. We'll talk a lot and say, "Hey, it's Chris from Vidyard. I'm reaching out because I noticed that you're currently hiring for SDRs, and normally that means that you're looking to grow the business and generate more meetings. Curious if you've thought about where video could potentially help you to do that. We're helping customers like whoever to 4x their replies. If you're open to a conversation, book a meeting. So it's that whole piece around like, hey, I noticed this. It doesn't change that. You do that in your text-based emails, hopefully, but video enables you to kind of show there's a real human being. You've taken the time to go on their LinkedIn profile, do some research on their company, and start a conversation. Just like a conversation would be more open if I met someone at a networking event and I found out about them and they said, yeah, I'm hiring SDRs at the moment, and having that conversation. So it just feels more human and more connected. And then ultimately what we're doing is adding a meeting link at the end, but we're giving that person the empowerment to go, yeah, I'm going to pick this time. And hopefully they feel empowered that they're choosing on their own grounds to start that conversation, rather than me every 2 days emailing them again saying, hey, just checking in. Did you get my message about how we can help you? Just checking it. It's a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah, I mean, this transitions us beautifully, Chris, into how you would think of this challenge if you weren't limited to that 3-day window and you now had a little bit more time. So let's say you now had 3 weeks to create demand, and maybe even broadly 3 months to create demand. It seems like sending that one video is really good for getting their attention that first time. But if they're not in the market at that moment for whatever reason, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you would market to them, or let's say build a relationship with them over a 3-week period and then a 3-month period.
Yeah, obviously I'm a big video guy, so I would want to be creating a lot of video content and having that able for them to be able to view it and pull in the data of what they're watching, right? So again, I'm using a bit of a Vidyard plug, but
Mm.
what we do is help to measure the video content. So I'd be creating lots of video content. I'd probably have a small website. I'd want to have lots of information about walkthroughs of customer case studies, explainers of how we've helped people in different spaces, create a lot of video content, and try and get as many eyes as I can on that landing page with that video content and get people to download and view that content. So again, I'm not a marketer, so someone will say, "Ah, stupid. Video doesn't. You can't just have video. You need to have multi-channel," and you probably do. Like you probably need to have blogs and you need to have ebooks and you need to have all that good stuff, right? I used to work for a HubSpot agency. I know all about inbound, so I know that you need to create all of this content. But if it's me creating stuff, I'm creating video. I know it's a good channel for conversion. I know I've got the means to be able to measure the intent from the people that are watching my videos. So I'm going to use that knowledge and that ability to be able to do that. So I'm going to create a lot of video content and I'm going to put it places that enable me to understand who it is that's closer to the bottom of that funnel to start that conversation with that buy.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. There's this concept that's gotten popular over the past maybe 3 to 4 years, intent data. And there are companies like Six Sense and perhaps Terminus and a few others that essentially will provide data on what your prospective customers are doing, either on your website, which is first party data, or potentially on third party websites in your industry. And my understanding of it is these prospect lists are then provided to sales teams who can now outreach and make calls to those particular individuals. So you've talked, Chris, about creating video content, having Vidyard sort of surface the data on who's watching what. So I'm interested in how that becomes actionable for you.
Yeah, I mean, so we can identify viewers with Vidyard, and we can push all that data into a CRM. So I don't know what budget I've got, but if I've got a HubSpot or a Salesforce, I can push all the video view data into a CRM, and then I can automate tasks or lead lists or calls or sales activity or anything within my marketing nurture trails to take the next step. So I could say if somebody's watched 3 minutes of video, that's highly engaged, therefore sales to reach out. If they've watched a minute, then maybe push them into a different place. So we push all the data into a Salesforce or a HubSpot, any kind of CRM, and then you do whatever you want with it, just based on exactly the same way you would with other types of engagement.
Perfect. Perfect. That makes sense. Okay, cool. So let's take a moment here This is good. You're moving through this gauntlet. I'm impressed, man, for not being a marketer. You're handling these questions. Okay,
Okay.
so I actually would love to transition into this concept that marketers have started talking about over the past 12 to 18 months, which is marketing like a media company. And Vidyard is one of those B2B brands that actually has built, it seems you guys have built a media arm called SalesFeed. I'd love to learn a little bit more about what SalesFeed is, why Vidyard created this separate arm, and how that maybe has contributed to the overall Vidyard pipeline.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't actually know what I can share. I don't think it's any.
Yeah,
It's no. Well, I say that because we didn't officially launch SalesFeed as a part of Vidyard. Obviously, it is, and anybody that's done any kind of very basic research can see. Like our CMO at Vidyard is one of the head sales feeders, and Will Aitken is. So yes, we did. I think really SalesFeed is not designed directly to be a lead funnel for Vidyard. But what we do at Vidyard is we have a sales tool that is great for sales professionals, whatever your role is, whether you're generating meetings, whether you're closing, or whatever it might be. So any point in the sales cycle, video can help. And we have a free tool. So ultimately, we're a product-led growth tool, and we want people to sign up for free. So the purpose of creating SalesFeed, and Tyler Lassard would be a great person to get on the show, and he can talk more about it, or will. But SalesFeed was designed really as a place to share and bring together a community of salespeople through mostly humor, but also they produce some really, really well put together YouTube content. There's now webinar content. There's lots and lots of memes and GIFs and short videos and TikToks and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a community. And they've built the community incredibly well over the last year. I think they've got, certainly on TikTok, about 50,000 followers now, and close to 20,000, a lot. I don't even know how many on LinkedIn, to be honest. I should check, but they're doing really, really well, generating a really good community. And ultimately, the goal is that there is overlap between those people who want to understand and view funny sales content, who want to learn how to be a better seller. They can learn all that on SalesFeed, and Vidyard is kind of part of that. So there's every now and then you'll see a little post that will talk a bit more about video and might suggest to do that. There is going to be a crossover between our products, where people are going to be able to access more kind of high level sales training content, because SalesFeed have built a really amazing network of sales influencers. So Sam McKenna, Jen Allen from Challenger, Bill Alvatrowi, a whole bunch of people, and building that content out. So it's really about the audiences being the same, and there being
got it.
crossover at points during that. And SalesFeed is all about kind of humor and learning and development, and those people naturally helping to build the funnel from our product led growth of our free tool and Vidyard.
Gotcha, gotcha. Really interesting to see how that's been developing. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And I do plan to talk to Will and to Tyler as well. So we'll see
No, sure.
what else we can learn about Vidyard. But we're following that case study pretty closely. All right, we got a couple more questions for you, Chris, and we're going to let you get back to selling. But we're going to walk through this segment that we call One Gotta Go. So I'm going to give you a list of 3 items. You get to keep 2 of them, and 1 of them gotta go. All right, you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
All right, let's do it. Here we go. Case studies, white papers, ebooks. 1 gotta go.
White papers.
White
I would say.
papers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Why did that one
I
make get the axe?
I'd be curious. I mean, to be honest, I don't know the best differences between white papers and I'm definitely keeping case studies. So it was really
Yeah,
one of those two. White
gotcha.
papers in my mind are less engaging. I think they're probably more text heavy, whereas an ebook's probably going to have a bit more dynamic content in there. It's going to be a bit more visual, easy to engage with. And so I probably think, unless you've made a terrible ebook, I'm going to say an ebook's probably going to be a more engaging and valuable read. So I'm going to get rid of the white papers.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, cool. Here's another list of three for you: lead scoring, lead nurturing, intent data. One got to go.
Um, I will get rid. It's difficult because lead scoring, lead nurturing. I feel like you can. I'm going to get rid of lead scoring because, and it's probably a bit of a cheat. I feel like my lead nurturing is going to fold in some degree of the lead scoring. I feel like I've scored the lead to be able to
Smart.
nurture them. But I
Okay.
think you can't do anything just with lead scoring. You need to be able to, once you've got a scored lead, you need to nurture it. So I'm going to get rid of lead scoring with a view
I
that
got
I've
you.
hopefully not nurturing every single one of my leads. And I love intent data, so I'm keeping that.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Fair enough. Fair enough. We're going to hit you with one more. Trade show leads, Chris. Ebook leads. Webinar leads. One gotta go.
It's a good one because I would say trade show leads are probably the best. I'm going to definitely keep trade show leads. And then I would be inclined to get rid of webinar leads because
Mm.
I find webinars are often very, very high catchment, right? They often have like a very generic title to attract lots of people. So they don't tend to be quite. So that's why you end up with a really good amount of all these people that join the webinar or sign up for the webinar and never watch it. And then actually you don't really have enough to go on as to whether they're interested in buying. Whereas at least with an ebook, it's more narrow. So I'm going to get rid of webinar leads.
You know, Chris, I'm curious about trade show leads were like they were safe on this list. And some trade shows are guilty of, the whole badge scan thing, come by my badge, get scanned, maybe to get some free stuff. How do you I'm assuming you don't necessarily regard those as good leads. How are you sifting those out, separating the wheat from the chaff, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it's a great question because you're right. Swag, people are like, I just want that water bottle. What do I need to do to get that water bottle? I haven't got enough water
Yeah,
bottles from trade shows. So I
right.
think my head as a salesperson is I was at that trade show. So I'm having conversations and for me
Uh,
they're already warm. So maybe I've kind of looked
I
at it with
got
a
you.
rose tinted glasses that they're they I've had a conversation, or at least my team have had a conversation with someone. You're right. There's going to
Right.
be some free swag hustlers in there that have any intention of ever signing up and just wanted the free Rubik's cube. I've got one in front of me here that I picked up at a trade show. Um, so
Sweet.
yeah, there's all of that stuff. So I don't know the answer of getting rid of them. But I would say that there's probably more value in there than webinar that can probably lots on there. And you haven't even had a direct conversation with them, at least at a trade show, even if they're there for the Rubik's Cube, there has been some degree of conversation
No.
and hopefully they've warmed them up to a bit.
That's really useful, actually. I appreciate that elaboration. All right, Chris. So this is the final one. You've done an amazing job on the demand wars. I'm really impressed. But we're gonna hit you with reality roulette. Now, the challenge here was to remix a reality show. Um, as we chatted before the call, you don't necessarily watch that many reality shows, so you are allowed to pick a reality show or a movie. And the idea is to remix this show with marketers and salespeople. What's a concept that comes to mind for you? How would you remix it?
So I have been thinking. I don't watch a lot of reality shows. We established on before this started, but are you familiar with a show called The Great British Bake Off?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to remix The Great British Bake
All
Off,
right.
where all the cast
Nice.
members are B2B marketers. So on
Yeah.
that show, Paul Hollywood, the cake making legend himself, he'll ask them to make something, and they have a round in it which is called the signature. I think I don't watch it too regularly, but they all have to make the same thing. So there's 3 rounds. They do like a showstopper where they make a pretty wild cake that's got loads of things. But they do a signature round where they basically will say, you have to make a Victoria sponge, and they don't have any ingredients or any instructions. They just have to remember how to do it or to try and guess how to do it. So I'm going to do that round in Great British Bake Off, but marketing. So they're going to say, Paul Hollywood's going to set them the task of, you have to generate 50 good leads for your sales team and then send them all off without any instructions or any ingredients. And each of those B2B marketers have just got to come up with their own invention. And hopefully at the end, they'll all have a perfectly made Victoria sponge that generates 50 leads for their sales teams. But of course, what actually often happens is they end up throwing it all in the bin. So that's going to be my show. It's going to be a mixture of people failing and succeeding at making a Victoria sponge of leads in a white tent.
Dude, I love that. I love that. And this actually comes full circle with your content creation to me anyway, because you attempt a lot of concepts. And I'm guessing that not all of them are hits. I'm guessing some of them end up in the bin. Maybe some of them don't get a lot of engagement. Maybe some of them you actually aren't crazy about the finished product. Something, though, allows you, Chris, to keep on iterating. And I think that's what's missing for most of us, whether marketers or salespeople.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I look back on some of the footage that I made. I used to make them when, a couple of years ago. And at the time I was getting maybe like 20 or 30 likes, but that was good for me. I was like, oh, wow. Like, and I remember like, I wonder if I'll ever get to the stage where I can get over like 100 reactions. And now that's like pretty standard. Sometimes they don't do so well, but it's normally still more than that. But I'll always put them out there. And there's always, because there's people that have always followed my content for years and just seemingly just enjoy whatever I put out. So there's definitely been some ones that have been better than others. And there's definitely been ones that I've put out that I thought were going to do really well and just didn't do really well. And, that's just the way it goes. I think for anybody that's thinking about putting out content and is worried about it not doing well, I think you just have to get over it, because you're going to be surprised by how much stuff you don't think will do well that will. And the stuff that doesn't do well, LinkedIn, the shelf life is like, what, 3 or 4 days, maybe? I mean, I had the Ronaldo post did pretty well, but I posted it last Friday. It had done all of its business by Saturday afternoon. And I mean, maybe if I posted it a weekday earlier, maybe it would have done more. But they're done in a few days, whether they're good or bad. So you just get them out there, and people will remember the positive stuff. No one's going to be like, oh, that's that person that put out that rubbish piece of content 3 months ago. It just doesn't happen.
Goodness, that is a really, really good point. We're going to have to end it on that note. Folks, you can see why Chris is one of the top 50 most helpful contributors. It says to sales development, but I think this has been like a marketing therapy session as well. Top 25 AEs to follow on LinkedIn. Definitely visit his profile and hit that follow. You'll learn, you will laugh, you'll be engaged. Chris is working at Vidyard, and he's doing amazing things for that brand. Thank you for coming on the Demand Wars, Chris.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. And apologies for my terrible marketing answers. Please feel free to feel free for your audience to DM me with what I should have said.
Feel free to also send your performance improvement plan to Chris at vidyard.com. We'll see you guys on the next one. Bye for now.